Hello, FRC teams, and welcome to the first Fundraising Toolkit Section 1 webinar. We're focused on the topic of the fundraising plan. My name is Renee Becker, and I am the first Fundraising Toolkit coordinator. And joining me today are FRC teams 1018, 1625, and 2470. The first fundraising toolkit was a grant from the Argosy Foundation, and the focus behind the toolkit was to provide teams with materials that would help them fundraise in their local communities, identify ways that teams can develop local relationships, highlight successful fundraising methods that teams would be able to adapt in their area, and help increase the overall sustainability of teams as corporate funding continues to decrease. The goal behind the first section of the fundraising toolkit is to help teams identify their needs, since before a team can go to a sponsor to explain why they need their sponsorship, they have to be able to identify their needs and know what they can approach the sponsors for. So in this section, we will have this webinar with FRC teams 1018, 1625, and 2470. And we will also have examples of the fundraising plans that they put together so you can see the different ways teams are able to implement the information. So, Mary, would you like to tell me a little bit more about FRC team 1018?
Absolutely. We are the Pike Robo Devils, and we are out of Indianapolis, Indiana. This is our 11th season and first, and last year we went to 2 regionals, and we have about 35 students and mentors. I'd say 30 of those are students, and we have 5 full-time active mentors.
And Kayla, can you tell me a little bit more about the Winnovation team?
Hi, we're First Team 1625 Winnovation. We're from Winnebago, Illinois. This is our 10th season. Last year we got to go to 2 regionals, and we have 44 students and mentors on our team roughly, with 35 of them being students.
Excellent. And then Evan, can you tell us about the Blitz team?
Yep, we're the Blitz team, team number 2470 from Bloomington, Minnesota. We've been around for 6 years now. We attended 1 regional last year. We currently have 24 students on the team and 2 mentors.
Great, and that's a wide variety of different teams that we have working on this fundraising plan. And we specifically brought these 3 teams in so that there was a representation from a rural area, a suburban area, and an urban area. And so moving into the interview, can you tell me what did you think of the fundraising plan overview that we had created and provided to teams? So Evan, do you want to go first?
I certainly can. When 2470 was going and reading through the fundraising plan overview, it was a great overview we found of the entire fundraising process. It helped us understand the overall process a lot more than we had in the past. It also allowed us to, start identifying our goals and fully understand what we want to do in the future.
Excellent. Kayla, can you talk a little bit about what your team thought about the fundraising plan overview?
We thought it was a very useful tool. It provided resources that are harder to come across, like organization of things, and it helped us really reorganize a lot of our sponsorship information and our budget information, and making it more clear and accessible to all of our team.
Mary, how was Pike Robo Devils able to utilize the plan?
Well, I thought it was a very useful step-by-step tool, just looking at the information provided as well as the examples. We were able to make our fundraising plan, without much additional help. So I thought it was a very useful tool.
Excellent. Now, who was involved with the creation of the fundraising plan, Mary, for the Robo Devils?
Well, the mentors really started the fundraising plan effort, and we did step 1, and then we took it to the students for the rest of the fundraising plan.
Great. And then, Kayla, can you tell us a little bit more about how Winnovation worked through the process of doing this plan?
1625 actually started with a small group of students who covered and completed most of the plan, with the occasional mentor input on things that we didn't know the answer to.
All right. And Evan?
All right on 2470, the two mentors we have really got together and created this document, and then we shared it with the students to get some input back from them, and then and continued to improve on the document until we figured it was ready to go and able for presentation.
So it sounds like, based on how the teams were able to use this document, that there's a large variety of ways that you can implement it, from having one mentor that's working on the plan to having a group of students, to involving the whole team and working with them. And so that's great feedback. I'm glad to hear that that's something that can be utilized across teams and across team organizational structures. So, Kayla, can you tell me, what did the team learn from walking through the fundraising plan?
One of the biggest things that helped us the most was the SWOT analysis. We were really able to pinpoint specific strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, etc. on our team, and it allowed us to take a realistic look at where we were as a team and allow us to move forward in making that work with how our budget was going and how obtaining sponsors was going for us.
Were there any specific things you found in the SWOT analysis that helped your team with its organizational structure?
Definitely, because organizational structure, a lot of key points in that did fall under our weaknesses category. So in identifying specific things like getting everyone involved in the distribution of how we were doing things really allowed us to take those, pinpoint where the actual problems were, and start working to recreate things and make a better structure for the overall fundraising and how we did that on our team. And it's already going immensely better.
Excellent. Mary, you mentioned that you were also able to identify some of these major strengths and weaknesses, but then the team was able to create this budget. Can you talk a little bit more about how the team took the plan and was able to develop your budget?
Absolutely. Even as one of the lead mentors, I didn't even know where our money was going and how much of it was coming in and flowing out. And so, as a mentor group, we were able to sit down and really make a budget for the first time in probably 3 or 4 years. And so, I thought that was a really good advantage, so that we had a realistic picture of where our money is. And so, we were able to plan for the future. We don't really know what the fundraising will bring in, but we are able to kind of say, well, if we want, these things, this is the money that we need to set aside for it. So it helped us to plan for the future and kind of identify our goals in regards to monetary needs as well.
Wonderful. Evan, can you talk a little bit about some of the in-kind donations that the team was able to identify that they needed?
Yeah, we first off, before, we've never thought about really getting any in-kind donations from sponsors. It's not something that had occurred to us as something we should pursue. And after looking at the document, our plan, it would really occur to us that, hey, it's not, we don't need to only go for money. We can go for some in-kind donations. So we thought up of some items that, old machine shop sponsors could donate to us, or, various other sorts of sponsors could donate to us. And a couple of the items we put down, a drill press would be a big item that we could certainly use. That a sponsor could potentially donate. Some other items, we could use NXTs for our growing FLL and FTC programs. So we added that into our in-kind donations list as well. That's I believe everything.
All right. And did you run into any challenges while you were working through this fundraising plan? Mary, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges for us was just finding a lot of the information and communicating it to the different mentors. When I was kind of creating the fundraising plan, I realized we had no formal list of sponsors. And so that was a good place to start for us. What things do we have coming in? What things do we have going out? And so kind of gathering some of that information can be one of the initial challenging parts. But it does challenge you to go find it. And communicate with each other as mentors. And I thought that was a definite advantage.
All right, awesome. That's great. And Kayla, can you talk a little bit more about some of the pieces of the fundraising plan and which ones were new to the team?
I definitely agree with Mary on locating some of the information. Some of it just wasn't public access to our team. We'd kind of had one person who'd been doing a lot of the budget stuff for a long time. So getting the information in order to fill out a lot of the parts of it that we didn't know before, and making it general knowledge to the whole team so that everyone sort of understands how our budget works, as well as some of the pieces of the fundraising plan that we hadn't really established clearly, like, for example, providing levels for sponsors. I mean, we had vague levels like, if you donate this, you get a sticker on the robot, but we hadn't really defined things like, in your examples you gave, like, oh, with this you get this, this, and this. We hadn't really defined like specific levels of monetary donation. And so coming up with those levels and deciding what we were going to provide for our sponsors as well as what we were going to expect from them was a new thing that we had to work really difficultly on, because it was just establishing it all.
Excellent. And I'm sure, did it take some time for the team to decide what those sponsor levels would be?
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, we looked at what we've been getting and giving to our sponsors in the past, and looked at like the levels of donation we had been like averagely receiving, and we started looking into, well, could we provide other things for the sponsors, like more robot demos and things along that line.
All right. Evan, can you talk about some of the challenges that 2470 ran into?
Certainly. One of the biggest challenges we did run into as a team is the mentors helped and did most of the fundraising plan, but getting the students involved and engaged and working on it was one of our biggest difficulties. It's hard to get students to just sit down sometimes and kind of work on this stuff when they don't really see any outcome of it immediately. It's more of a long-term goal, and it was hard for us to kind of show our students that what they're doing is really going to affect them in the long term.
Wonderful. So, going through this process, I want to look at some of the ways the teams discovered new that they needed, and were able to identify ways that they wanted to engage their sponsors. So, Mary, can you tell me how 1018 was looking at some of these areas, and they wanted to find these new FLL kits to grow the program?
Absolutely. One of the things we did this year was start our first FLL team, and we realized, that the actual FLL kits would be a huge piece of the puzzle and could be something that teams, or rather companies, could donate to help us help the FLL teams. And so that was one need that we didn't realize that we even had until we were working on the in-kind donation list.
Excellent. And, Kayla, you did mention before about the team organization and documentation processes. So I'm actually going to move into Evan. And Evan, if you want to talk a little bit more about how you were able to find the machine shop that you were able to work with to find these in-kind donations that you had listed before.
Yep. So as before, I did list the in-kind donations. We wanted FLL kits and drill presses, but additionally, or in addition to that, we found a machine shop in our area that was super, super critical to our future sustainability as a program. We don't always have the newest tools or the newest machines in our shop, and just being able to get an in-kind donation from a machine shop in our area is just huge, because as a company they can always stay up to date with the newest technology, and that's not something a school district can do. So in-kind donations were really, really something new and awesome for our team to realize.
With the machine shops, I've worked with a number of teams that have gone out into their local communities, and they've actually found multiple machine shops that could make their parts. Since during the build season, the turnaround time needs to be pretty quick. And so having those multiple shops to work with them is a great way to lighten the load off of one of the sponsors, but still engage in the local community. All right. And so, you guys have worked through this fundraising plan, and do you have any advice that you could share with other teams in the first program who are going to be, doing their fundraising this upcoming fall? Let's start with Mary.
Well, one of my pieces of advice would be to have one person kind of create the initial fundraising plan and definitely get input from all of your team mentors. We sat down at our weekly mentor meetings and I went over what I had created, and when I had questions, of course, I took it to the other mentors. So I thought it was helpful to have one person kind of be the main lead in charge of it, just to keep it simple, and that way you're not having to there's no confusion or anything like that, but definitely you want input from all mentors.
Excellent. So really having that one key person that's adding the information and developing the documents was an important part for your team. All right. So Kayla, talk a little bit about some of the challenge, some advice that you have for our teams.
I would definitely say for our team, since it was students putting together this plan, to keep communication open and to go to your mentors with any questions and to make sure that you're communicating with your team and getting everyone involved, because we're a smaller team, so we're able to keep everyone updated and make sure everyone's educated on it. I agree that it needs to be a small amount of people actually working with the document, because it gets cluttered if you have a million people working on one of these things. But we tried to keep everyone involved, or at least knowledgeable. You don't have to have everyone working on it, but make sure everyone is knowledgeable of what sort of things you're implementing in your team and what fundraising and sponsorship is to your team, and show people how important it is in like producing your robots or getting your team name out or whatever you're fundraising for.
And it sounds like having that team engagement is incredibly important for when the team is going to be going out to sponsors. So having them engaged and knowing what the team is updating is very, very important. So that's a great point, Kayla. All right, Evan, can you talk about advice that you have for teams from your experiences?
Yes, really, I think an important part of the fundraising plan is to spend time creating your budget and in-kind donation list. It's really important to understand what is in there and why you need it or why you need the money. That way, when you are going out to sponsors and you're kind of presenting them with this information, you can really explain to them why you need it with very, very good examples. And we found that to be really powerful. So spend time creating your budget and your in-kind donation list. Put a lot of thought into that in-kind donation list as well.
Thank you, Evan. So, if any teams have any questions, feel free to contact me at rbecker@usfirst.org. And I would like to give a special thanks to all the teams and the representatives that helped with this project. Without you testing out the fundraising plan, we wouldn't have been able to create this toolkit. So I absolutely appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.